Hello and welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. Please, if you have not subscribed, do so. If you like this video, please push like at the end. I want to say this real quick. I was recently talking to a federal official. Yeah, I was talking. Oh, I knew you talked to federal officials. I was recently talking to a federal official, and kind of insinuated that I on this channel I'm glorifying, glamorizing prison life, kind of reliving my memories, and to me, maybe this wasn't his point, but kind of insinuated that that I had one foot in the criminal life and one foot whatever. I want to make something clear about this. I tell prison stories. I do kind of find irony in the fact that I was sentenced to life without parole after I was offered 2 years to tell, and 5 years into whatever, and can now tell stories and make money off of it, and there's something in there, and that but where I'm really headed is criminal justice reform. Every time a former prisoner tells a story on YouTube or any platform, I believe they're contributing to criminal justice reform. Where I want to be down the road is impactful in the arena of criminal justice reform. And even if I may smirk, smile, laugh at all the inappropriate times when I'm telling stories, I spent my adult life in federal prison, so I have a dark sense of humor and some stuff. I'm sorry that I don't, like Chad puts the message out, Chad Marks on his channel, it's to save children from going back to prison. I haven't done that. And because I haven't, I guess some can construe this as glorifying, whatever. My point is this, there's a market for prison stories for whatever reason, and if I didn't tell prison stories like I am, a lot of people wouldn't be here. A lot of people don't want to hear me talk about criminal justice reform. That's the truth. I'm hoping to grow this audience, and I'm hoping that at least a portion of them follow me when I go into other platforms of talk. That is talking about politics or my life or drugs, whatever that may be. But here we are today on this prison channel, and I'm 3 minutes into it, and some people are pissed already. Drinking in the hole. Actually, I'll get there. I was in Leavenworth in 1998. I was sentenced to Leavenworth. I was had a fresh life sentence, was sent to Leavenworth. And as many of you know who follow this, within a few years, started really hanging out with some white gang members. And the leader of the Dirty White Boys, whose name was Kenny, had a sidekick whose nickname was Cub. I didn't really know Cub that well for more than a year. To me, I thought he was a nut swinger. I thought he was Kenny's do boy, kiss ass, whatever. The first time I had any interactions with Cub was one night when Kenny, Cub, another, I think, Dirty White Boy at the time, came into my unit. These guys all lived in B Upper, I lived in B Lower, and had a little standoff with the only Emmy there at the time, which was Negro, and some Sureños. I was in the middle of it because I hung out with the Sureños and the Emmy, and being from California, that's natural, white guys hanging out with Sureños and Emmys. And but I also hung around these guys who were Dirty White Boys. So I was in a real crosshairs. Anyway, Cub and I started talking that night as all of the situation was being ironed out. Well, ironed out. They had some kind of agreement. The argument was over a guy who had a lot of money. What they were really trying to do was, see who had control of the guy with the money. That's the truth of it. The guy's name was Phil. The Emmy had him right here under their arm. They're taking all his money. He was a duck, treated him like a duck. and the DWBs wanted their duck. So what ends up happening is this. Kenny had come to me, asked me if I wanted to do the hit on this guy, Phil. This is after he told the Emmy Negro that they were hands off, okay? I didn't want no part. He said, you do the hit, you can automatically get a patch. You can be a dirty white boy. I didn't want no part of that. I didn't want no part of it at that time. There was no other dirty white boys. There was one other one, but Kenny needed him out on the line. The other ones were all locked up in the shoe. And then there's Cub, who was not a dirty white boy, who was not prospecting to be a dirty white boy. So the next night, Cub walks up to C3, I believe, or A3 or A2, where this guy Phil lived, took some locks and a sock, called the guy to the door, and beat the living hell out of him. I mean, crushed this guy. There was blood rolling down outside of the front of the unit, starting to go trickle down the stairs. Now, when the staff arrived at the scene of the crime, they flipped out and saw who the victim was. They freaked out. They rushed Cub into a room and hosed him off. The staff who originally handcuffed Phil come running and hosed off. Phil had full-blown HIV. Full-blown AIDS, I'm sorry. Cub was never told that. There were people who knew that. Maybe Kenny, maybe not. The following day, I got locked up on a dirty urine or a drunk. I forgot what it was, but I ended up in the cell with Cub. And this is the first time I got to know Cub. And you know what? I really liked Cub. Really likable guy. Out of Washington. Good personality. He had I understand why people thought he was Kenny's do-boy and fuck-boy. He really liked Kenny, would do things for him. And he was just, you know, I'm not going to say he was a follower, but he wasn't a leader. And there's guys in prison that like attract to people in positions of power. It sounds a little weird, but you know what I mean. Kenny gave him some kind of comfort. I don't know. But he was mad at Kenny because he believed Kenny knew that the guy Phil, who he had HIV, and he was really worried that he had HIV, of course, and that's natural. That he somehow caught HIV or AIDS, especially back in those days when, you know, there was a lot of, nobody knew for sure. It was still kind of iffy about how you contacted. Well, they knew, but, you know, people thought you can just touch blood and you'd get it automatically. One of the things I really liked doing with Cub was I liked drinking and telling stories. And Cub had a lot of them. Now, there's some guys in prison that used to call me Dr. Rob because they said I psychoanalyzed everybody I talked to. And there's some truth in that, especially when I started drinking, okay? Loved it. Loved being I loved being in the hole with just one person. And I loved starting with their childhood. I liked really getting into their heads, you know? And Cub was one of them. Cub was, so he had a mom, of course, duh. His mom was married 5 or 6 times. And he would tell stories about each and every one of the stepfathers as he remembered them. And he called them all dad. And I remember finding that really peculiar because he referred to every one of them still to this day as dad. So I remember seeing like psychological issues right there. Not saying I don't have any, other people don't. But I remember really seeing that was like a flag. I'm like, why does this person refer to everybody as dad? And okay, now it makes sense. He's like really all over Kenny, but it's just like because Kenny makes him feel safe or something to that nature. But we became friends after that. On the compound, we got out on the compound, we became friends. And Cub was a really good friend. You know, so in prison, a good friend was somebody you can confide in. Somebody that will always have your back no matter what, ask questions later. I'm not saying that's always a good thing, you know. So if you're hanging around a scumbag who's doing dirt and you're there to fight his battles, that's not necessarily good, okay? But Cub was the type of guy that would never ask questions. If something you were walking and you had a fight, he'd be there for you, okay? And that's considered a good friend in prison. especially if you're in the mix and involved in all those games, drugs, gambling, and all that stuff like I was. As time passed and I became a DWB, there was a time when Cub, surprisingly, this was after Kenny left, decided that he was going to prospect for the Dirty White Boys. Now, again, he lived in he lived in B Upper, biggest unit in Leavenworth. And when we got into it, that is, the Dirty White Boys got into it, the Aryan Resistance Militia, they had locked all affiliates and associates of the Dirty White Boys and the Dirty White Boys up for investigation. At one point, the warden decided to let people out of the hole. So he decided that, okay, we're just in prison and guys are going to have problems, so here's what we'll do. We'll let the associates out, we'll let the affiliates out, then we'll let the Dirty White Boys out. Cub, I said, was prospecting. They let 30-something guys out. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 33 guys got locked up. They let like 20-something guys out, and the first person that they let out that was intimately involved in the gang was Cub. Cub was sent on a mission. He was the first and only one out. B Upper had a very large card table that brought in thousands of dollars a week. There was a lot of money owed when the Dirty White Boys went to the table. There's a lot of money owed on the table when the Dirty White Boys went to the shoe. The Dirty White Boys in B Upper. Cub was sent out to collect. Well, unbeknownst to him, us, anybody else at the time, the yard in general had different ideas, and that is Speed, who was a shot caller for the arms, and other influential guys came together and said, any Dirty White Boy that comes out on this compound is smashed. We're going to get rid of them all. We're going to stomp them off the yard. Cub didn't know it, went to the table to collect his money, and got beat down by 3 dudes. He got smashed. And sent back to the hole. So now Cub comes back to the hole, and this is when we first find out that we're greenlit. So anytime we hit the yard, we're going to get hit, and it was a crazy time for real. Talk about making knives in the shoe. Woof. Knives were being mass produced at that time by us. So anyway, so Cub is just beat up. It finally came out that Speed, shot caller for the arms, went to the warden and told the warden not to let any of us back out. At that point, that's Dirty White Boys. At that point, they moved all the DWBs and friends that were still locked up to Building 63. Building 63 was one of the original special housing units at Leavenworth. People also say that's where the Birdman of Alcatraz was originally held for X amount of years. In 63, although I think that it's accurate, it's 62, Building 62. And these are just buildings within the perimeters of the USP Leavenworth fence. Have I been saying Butner? Please, hope I've been saying Butner. I meant Leavenworth the whole time. I almost said Butner, so. The cells in Building 63 had 3 bunks, so 6 beds. But we wouldn't allow more than 5 people in a cell at a time. Cub was one of the first guys that came into the cell. It was me, Dusty, Jeremy, and White. A guy named White. One night, we were drinking. We drank a lot in the shoe. We drank a lot. 3 nights a week at least, especially in Building 63. Lots of sugar, lots of fruit, really easy to make wine. Summertime, wine cooked fast. Had a lot of potatoes, so that really rocketed the wine. We get drunk one night, and Cub starts telling stories. Now, he was a pretty good storyteller. The question became, did you believe the stories he was telling? Personally, I never gave a damn about anybody. Just keep your story consistent. Keep it consistent, and I'm cool. I can know you're lying. I can believe that you're lying and still respect you. Just tell me a good story. Keep it consistent, right? Okay. Cub was telling a story, getting a little out there on some of the stories about girls and drugs and being this kind of a player and this kind of a player. And Dusty, who was, you know, amongst friends, was really honest, kind of like me. And I say that because he didn't hide. Like if he got beat up for something, he would say it. If he did this, he would say it. Well, he let slip out of his mouth that he'd never seen more than $3,500 cash in his entire life. Dusty, that is. And that was when he robbed 2 banks. That's 2 banks worth of money, I believe. It wasn't 1, it was 2 in one day. And Cub pops off and says to Dusty, $3,500. I wouldn't get out of bed for $3,500 a day. Hey, Dusty was freaking pissed. If you knew him, he was. Cub made an enemy for life at that point, right there. He didn't even know it. Well, Cub passes out. When he passes out, for whatever reason, more than 1 or 2 guys in that cell started hating on him, and we went through his property. And I say we went through his property. His property was gone through. Now, you have a laundry bag. Imagine a net laundry bag. It's got your personal effects in it, paperwork, that is your legal documents, soap, shampoo, sour, whatever. Well, he had legal work, and I know how to read the law. I mean, there is actually kind of, you have to know what you're looking for. When I opened up his pre-sentence investigation report and some other documents, I noticed that they gave him 10 years for being what I originally thought was an armed career criminal. Now, at the time, armed career criminal, or ACCs, the minimum you can get is 15 years. I believe that's right. So when I saw 10 years, I said, oh, he's a rat. Cub's a rat. He's a snitch. I said that straight up. They're like, what? What do you mean Cub's a rat? I'm like, hold on. And I'm reading. And there was some paper that came out that said, they talked about a cooperation deal. So I'm like, oh, there it is. And they're like, and Dusty jumps up. So now everybody's ready to assault Cub. And what I mean, let me tell you this. So you got a bunch of drunk guys, right? We had already been assaulting people in cells. Now let me back up. I said that Cub was the first guy that went over 63. That's not true. Sean who was a dirty white boy who dropped out after we beat him up in the shoe in building 63, dropped out. He was the first. So I told you we kept 5 guys, but there was 4 of us that were always there. Out of the 4, you know, we were doing some damage to guys, to the 5th person that would come in that cell. So Cub was the 5th person. Let me tell you something. So imagine the guy is passed out in the corner, and he's passed out this way. He's got his arms out, got brand new shoes on his feet, and a wristwatch that's worth money on his hand. Now he's passed out. All you got to do is you want to rob him and steal. Okay, we think he's a snitch, right? Just take his wristwatch off, take his shoes off, brand new shoes, take them off, tell him to go, slap him around, whatever the deal is. We made this big production out of it. We, like, literally, Dusty lines up and he's like feeling his jaw, like putting his knuckles to the jaw like this, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. You're like measuring, sizing him up, right? Then I would like go with my foot, and I was like, I'm gonna kick him, and then like I put my toe like by the bottom of his chin. So so there's 4 of us standing around him in the corner saying like, okay, you hit him here, I'm gonna kick him here, and then after he's down, I'm gonna step on him here, and we're really like going through. We never had to do any of that. I mean, there's 4 of us gonna beat this guy up, and everybody's gonna be involved in this. This guy's gonna get hurt, right? I mean, one person could have done this. He was passed out, for God's sakes. It was comical looking at it. We weren't laughing about what we were doing, but I mean, we were like, serious. Okay, bro. All right, Dusty's like, I'm gonna hit there. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna kick him here, and then I'm gonna get his wrist, and I'm gonna steal the watch. I'll take his feet. He's passed out. Sure enough, one punch is throwing, one kick's throwing, and we didn't stop. And it was a frenzy. It was a freaking frenzy. Poor Cub. This guy's already, he's still beat up from getting beat up, trying to go collect money at the table. His face. Now, I've been beat up bad before, so when you guys say you're laughing about somebody being assaulted, listen, I've had that face. His face was so swollen he couldn't yell in the matter of seconds. So we're like, get on the door, bitch, rat, bitch, come on, bitch, rat. You know, the guy's face was huge. There was blood coming out of his eyes. It was horrible, okay? Seriously. Cops come, Jesus Christ, oh my God, what did you do? Oh. So I get him out, and I remember him looking back, he's going, no. And he's saying, I'm not a rat, is what he was saying. When he said that, I let me go back and check this paperwork again. Went back and read it. He denied the cooperation deal for pleading guilty. Instead of giving him an ACC, which is an armed career criminal, they gave him felon in possession of firearm, which carried a 10-year maximum penalty. It's a lesser included offense. So he was not a rat. I get people get on me all the time for this little laugh. So look, I saw Cub again. We got sent back over to the shoot, and when we got sent back over, I saw Cub, and Cub's, hey Rob, and he's not a dumb guy, so I'm not trying to play his dumb, but he was like, his feelings were hurt, you know, like, why'd you guys do that to me, man? What the fuck? I mean, we beat him up. And I said, man, Cub, hey, bro, I'm sorry. I did this. I caused this. I told him straight up. He's like, hey, man, I get it. Poor bastard. I mean, no, I just felt like guilty about saying that. But that's the truth. And that's kind of the story of Cub there, guys. Was just talking about Cub, to be honest. Oh, shit. I just hit a bump. Anyway, I was talking about Cub. The story was about Cub. There was a guy that was there with us that asked me to talk about him before, I believe, and I just did. So, Cub, I'm not sure if you're watching it. I haven't looked you up. I apologize again, bro, for real. Great guy. Great guy. Anyway, bad. That's what happens. That's drunken, fueled idiots in the shoe. That's some of the stuff that happens in prison. And with that said, I don't think that was glamorizing prison life. I think that's the reason people should stay out of prison. For real, because even your friends, the guys you trust the most, can turn on you because of some stupid shit like me reading the paperwork wrong. That's just keeping it real, right? Keeping it real. Take care.